not as easy as I remember. I don't like this, Richard. It's almost as if you can almost see the spot. There's something right here.
The bullying incident happened that Friday in 5th grade. The more I delve into it, the more upset I am that I was involved. Why didn't I say stop? I have to speak to my classmates, whomever I can find.
I remember being a bit of an instigator.
We all, as a mass, kept on running down the stairs and surrounded him.
Kind of feeling guilty to this day that I did something like that.
Richard and I are here to go to the 50th reunion for grade school, which is strange.
It's morphed into a little more than that.
Why do you think kids pick on weaker kids?
It could be a sixth sense or something.
Now, I probably was not brave enough back then to say that's not fair.
I remember the circle and the chanting.
Being a bully is one of the most disgusting things.
I remember being really shocked by that kind of behavior.
Everyone carries pain, yet through that pain, I can now see yours.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Jay Rosenblatt is an internationally recognized artist and filmmaker. He's made over 30 films, which explore our emotional and psychological cores. His films have received over 100 awards over the years, and his new film, When We Were Bullies, is hoping to add one more award to his list. The big one, the Oscar, because When We Were Bullies is one of the 5 Oscar-nominated documentary short films. It's currently playing in select theaters, and on Wednesday, March 30th, it will be on HBO and also available to stream on HBO MAX. And Jay's with us today to talk about When We Were Bullies. Jay, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I was wondering if you can start. Some of the people watching this interview may have already seen the documentary and are finding this interview online after the fact, so they know the origin of how the film got made, because it's pretty self-explanatory when you see the film. But for those that are watching this that maybe don't know what your film is, kind of give a brief overview of what the film is about and how it came to be.
Sure. Like you said, the film is very transparent. So in the film, I'm constantly explaining what's going on and how things started and where they went. But for those viewers who haven't seen it, the film begins with a mind-boggling coincidence that happened 25 to 30 years ago. I was making another film. It was called The Smell of Burning Ants, and I was looking for a narrator to that film. And I was teaching at the time, and I got a person, one of my students had a person that I really liked his voice. So I sought him out. I was living in San Francisco. He lived in Berkeley. Brought my 3-page voiceover script. He looks it over. He sees a line that says he was raised on concrete, box ball, stick ball, punch ball, slap ball. Those are all New York street games. So this person, Richard is his name, said, "Are you from New York?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Me too." "Where in New York?" "Brooklyn." "Me too." "Where in Brooklyn?" Sheepshead Bay. "Me too." We knew we were the same age. He goes, "What elementary school did you go to?" "PS 194. "Me too." And then he said, "Who did you have for 5th grade?" And I said, "Turn the page." And at the top of the page, it said, "In 5th grade." And it turns out that Richard was in my 5th grade class, was part of this bullying incident that happened, which that other film was all about, but not just that incident. It was about, that was the trigger incident for that film. So we were just shaking, because this is like 25 years later, 3,000 miles away. And here he is, we are sitting across from each other, and he could have written the words he was reading. So it's a pretty amazing experience. And I used to tell that story a lot when I'd show The Smell of Burning Ants, or I had a retrospective or something. And I told it to a friend about 6 years ago, and she said, "You know, that's such an amazing story. Why don't you make a film about that?" And I thought, that's not a bad idea. So the new film, When We Were Bullies, uses that experience, that coincidence, and a few others to be a point of departure for me to track down my 5th grade class to see what they remember of this incident. So it's a film about memory. It's a film about complicity. It's a film about mortality. And I found 20 of my classmates who appear in the film either on screen or on phone call interviews. And I even found my 5th grade teacher, which was a shock because I didn't plan on looking for her because I assumed she had passed away, but she was still alive. So that's a bit of a summary.
So a lot of your films that you made previous to this have a psychological aspect to them. You have a therapist background. What about that? Is it the old adage, make what you know? And that's kind of your background. So you're just kind of drawn to that naturally, or what is it about films examining psychological cores of people that attracts you?
Well, I got into counseling and I got a master's degree in counseling. And one of the motivations was to just help people, help heal people based on my own past and some of the traumatic things I've gone through. And I took a filmmaking class while I was in counseling grad school, and I just fell in love with filmmaking. So I finished my master's degree, but I decided to go to film graduate school. And I still worked in the psychiatric field. I worked on a psych unit while I was getting my film degree. And then I shifted into filmmaking and teaching film. But I think the same motivation, and not for all my films, but for many of my longer shorts, let's say, there's a healing component and there's a desire to stimulate discussions, to open people up to maybe looking at themselves and just hopefully helping people.
You had mentioned that you had talked to a lot of your old classmates. You hunted them down, and a lot of them participated in the film. How receptive were they when you told them this idea about talking about this incident? And were there some that you asked, talk to you, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to participate in this." So
yeah, you just went mute for a second, but yeah. Anyway, I hear you now.
Okay.
No, they all agreed to. I told everyone that I was recording the phone call. They all agreed. They're all very willing to talk to me. Many of them, as you know from the film, didn't remember the incident at all. Some of them had only a vague memory. I'm one of the people that had a vague memory, to be honest. My narrator, Richard, the one I told you about earlier, he had a very detailed memory about the incident. And so there was a bit of a continuum, some not at all, some a lot, some in between. They all remembered the person that we bullied, but they didn't all remember that actual incident. And I don't know, it was kind of nice to talk to them. I didn't expect it, but a lot of them had some great insights. I mean, I hadn't spoken to these people in over 50 years. Last time I saw them, we were 10 years old. So it was kind of amazing to see how people develop and grow.
One of the things I really like about your film and that makes it unique is that you use stop motion animation to tell the story. You don't have footage, of course, from that time. So you take cutouts of the class photos of all the students' heads and kind of have them, walk around and interact, and you kind of tell the story using their faces. Talk about the inspiration for that. Why did you choose to do the stop motion animation, and how did that all come about?
Yeah, well, I worked with an amazing animator. His name is Jeremy Rourke, and I knew him. He taught my daughter in her after-school program. He also taught her guitar lessons, and I found out that he did these beautiful short animations. And I kind of put that in my back pocket. And then when I was starting this film, I thought, how am I going to deal with something that happened 50 years ago? I didn't want this to be just a talking heads documentary. I'm not interested in that kind of documentary for the most part. I use a lot of found footage and I do collage in my films, but I really thought this might be a good film to play around with animation. So I spoke to Jeremy. He agreed to collaborate with me. He does different types of animation, but he does do a lot of cutout animation. It's all analog. It's not computer animated. And I was really drawn to that style. And I think a big turning point in the film came when I said to him, I think we should stick with the class photo and think of every permutation possible with that in mind. And that kind of limitation led to a lot of creativity, I have to say. And I was lucky I had the class photo. And I was also lucky that it wasn't a group picture. It was all individual shots, headshots. It's the only year of class photos that I had that. I don't even know why that was the case, but it worked to my advantage. And Jeremy did just an incredible job. It's very evocative. When you're seeing these 10-year-old children, but hear their adult voices, there's something that's very interesting about that. I think that really resonates. There's kind of a disconnect, but it's a good one.
It's one of the things I really liked about the film, and it helps balance it too, which I think works for the film, because you've got a serious incident that happened, but the film has this playful quality. The animation helps with that. Another thing that kind of feeds into that is the score from Eric Ian Walker's score. He balances a playful melody as things are going on, but there's also this undertone that comes up, serious, something ominous is happening. And I think that helped make the film unique. Could talk a little bit about the score.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, Joe, because Eric's contribution was enormous. I've worked with him before on 2 other films. He actually worked on The Smell of Burning Ants, the film that this film is kind of a follow-up to. And you're absolutely right. We had a few different themes, and we employed them to shift the tone. And not only was the animation playful, but sometimes the music's playful, sometimes it's more, I wouldn't say ominous, but just more serious and more emotional. And I think that helps the viewer make those shifts. I also think bringing in some humor in the film, whenever I can do that in a film, I really like doing that if it's there, because it opens people up and you can get a lot more serious things in when people are kind of, their heart is open more, and humor can do that.
I think, did we lose you?
Challenging part of the film was to balance that tone, because it's a fine line, as you say.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you encountered making the film? Not counting jumping the fence to get into the school playground. What were some of the...
That was pretty big. That was not acting. I thought I was going to kill myself. And it was really rusty, and yeah, that was scary. Well, one is the tone that I just mentioned. Another is this is kind of a spoiler alert, I guess, but I had every intention of including the person that was bullied, or trying to include that person. And organically, in the making of the film, I made a decision not to do that. I didn't think that would be a good idea, possibly for him. And I didn't feel like I wanted to impose the film on him. Also, it wasn't really about him. It was about us. It was about complicity. So that was a big challenge, how to not have him in the film, how to protect his privacy, but how to still make the film work.
I'm going to build off of that question. And what were some of the biggest surprises that you had when making the film? I know Mrs. Bromberg, discovering that Mrs. Bromberg's still alive and that you get to talk to her, that was a big surprise. So not counting her, we're going to get to Mrs. Bromberg in a second. But any other surprises that you encountered in making the film?
Yeah, there was a big surprise. and I never intended it to be in the film. But when I was in fourth grade, my younger brother died, and that was kind of one of the traumas I was alluding to earlier. And I withdrew into a shell in a way, and just hid it from everyone. I didn't talk about it at all. I couldn't talk about it. It was too painful, and I felt too much survivor guilt, let's say. When I interviewed a lot of my classmates, I would ask that. I didn't even think of this, but at some point I'd say, "Do you remember anything about me?" Just curious. And several of them, all women, interestingly, remembered my brother dying the year before, and showed some empathy towards me around that. And I was kind of shocked because I thought because I was hiding it, nobody really knew, but they did. They knew. And they probably didn't feel comfortable at that age knowing what to do with that. I certainly wasn't open to talking about it, and they picked up on that. So that was a really big surprise, very moving, to be honest. And I decided to bring that into the film, to make the film even more personal than it already was. One of the reasons I didn't even think of it is because I made a previous film called Phantom Limb, where I used my brother's death as a point of departure to talk about and to explore grief and loss. And I didn't think I'd do that again, but it seemed totally appropriate given that my classmates brought it into the film. So that I would say that was one of the big surprises.
So let's talk about Mrs. Bromberg, your fifth grade teacher. You're making this film, talking to some of your fellow classmates. You discover that Mrs. Bromberg is still alive. Another coincidence, just like your friend that you find 3,000 miles away in San Francisco that was in your class that's narrating your film from the 90s. Another coincidence, another student runs into Mrs. Bromberg in Florida and tells you she's still alive. Talk about this and what it was like in getting to include her perspective in the film.
Well, I mean, it was amazing. First of all, like I said earlier, I didn't even think of looking for her. I just, it was up over 50 years ago. In my mind, I don't know. I just didn't think she'd be around.
How old is she when you speak to her in the film?
When I speak to her, she's 92.
92, okay.
Sadly, she passed away at 94. Unfortunately, I worked very slowly. Part of it was the analog animation, but I really wanted her to see the film, but she never saw it. Her son did. He came to a New York screening, and he told me she would have loved it, which meant a lot to me. Which is
funny because while you're talking to her in the film, you ask her, "Do you think people are gonna like this film?" She's like, "No, nobody's gonna want to watch this film. This is good. This sounds tedious." I just saw the film in a theater over the weekend. I'll give a shout out to Film Street in Omaha, Nebraska. We watched all the Oscar shorts there, and that got a big laugh in the theater because we're theater's full of people, and we're all watching your film. And she's like, "Nobody's gonna watch this."
I know that was pure gold. I couldn't believe she said that, but she was very blunt and honest, and very old school. And it was one of those coincidences. If I didn't go to the reunion, which was already a strange coincidence, that I had started with the idea for this film, that all of a sudden I get a 50th anniversary reunion for grade school, which I have never heard of. I know there's high school reunions and college, but grade school. So that came, and I thought, oh my God, here we go again. Yet another thing kind of pushing me forward in this film. And at that reunion in New York, which I went to with my narrator, Richard, main subject in this film, Richard, this schoolmate, she was in the same grade, but not in that class, got wind of my film, and she said, I live in Florida, and a few years ago, Mrs. Bromberg came into my ophthalmology office. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. Do you think she's still alive? She said, I know she moved back to New York, and I think she's still alive. And I just couldn't believe it. So then I had to go on this kind of detective search, trying to track her down. I finally did. Some of it's in the film. And it was great because, especially given that I don't interview the person we bullied. It was a kind of a nice, narratively, it was a nice element in the film, later in the film, to discover her. And she says some great things. So I think she's an important part of the film. Yeah.
I was sad to hear that she had passed away, because I think that's the big unanswered, one of the big unanswered questions. Now that the film's out, is what would Emmy said her son said she would have loved it, but I would like to get a recording of her seeing the film and seeing that it was nominated for an Oscar, and getting her take on that, and seeing it. I was wrong.
I would have loved to have said that to her. First of all, I'd love for her to have seen the film, and I think, knowing her, she said it depends how it's presented. I think she would have been very happy just seeing it. And then when it, with all this hoopla that she's in this Oscar-nominated film, I think it just would have been a nice gift to her.
Now, you've mentioned that you made a conscious choice not to include Dick, Richard, the kid who was bullied, as part of the film. It's not about that necessarily. It's about you and what the kids that did the bullying were going through, and how their memories and how they recollected the incident. Now that the film's out, did you at any point think about that? Should I have done that? Do you have any second thoughts about that? And to your knowledge, has Dick seen the film? Has he reached out to you now that the film's gotten attention? Have you heard? Is he aware of the film, and has he seen the film?
So, first of all, I just want to say I don't refer to him as Dick. That was kind of, I didn't even know that. That was Richard remembered that detail. So, so this other Richard, the person that was bullied.
A lot of Richards in your class, so you have to Richard. Dick, the teacher gave everybody names. So.
I know, but that was the fourth, Richard, and the narrator, that was his fourth grade teacher doing that. I wasn't in his fourth grade class. So I didn't have that association with the nickname. But this Richard, the person that was bullied, I have no idea if he's seen the film. I have no regrets for not contacting him. I actually think the fact that his identity is protected in that we don't see his class photo. Either his face is blurred or it's a silhouette. And I think it actually makes the film more universal. And I think people that watch it can put their own person or themselves into that role easier than if we had really seen him. If he does see it, and if he does reach out, I would love to talk to him and listen to him and hear what he has to say. Part of me hopes he doesn't, just because I don't want to bring up an old wound that maybe he feels done with. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to impose the film on him. But who knows? With the way this film has gone and through all these years, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because as you know, seeing the film, he saw the first film, right, and he reached out to me and asked to see it. I sent him a DVD, and then I never heard anything from him. And I took that kind of as a sign that maybe he doesn't want to engage around this, which is fine.
Well, let's talk Oscars for a second. As we're recording this, it's 3 days before the Oscars. Right. So the Oscars haven't happened yet. Most of the people, almost everybody watching this, the Oscars have already happened, so we know if who the winners are. Talk about that morning that you find out your film's nominated for an Oscar. You've been making short films and documentaries for years, decades, and 30 films more than 30 films under your belt. What is it like after all these years to find out that one of the films that you've made is nominated for an Oscar? Take me back to that morning when you found out, and that whole experience.
Well, I had thought I've had other films that qualified, and one film that was shortlisted years ago, but I never got to the point where. Well, anyway, what I'm saying is, I always thought they called you like at 5:30 in the morning. But then I found out like a week or two before the nominations were going to be announced that that's not how they do it, that it's announced online and also on TV. So my wife and I set the alarm for 5:30 a.m. and turned on the TV and just watched it. And she screamed. I kind of knew it was going to happen only because my film was alphabetically the last shortlisted film. And the fourth film that was nominated was the film right before mine. So I just did the calculation. And right before they said it, I just said, I got it. And she couldn't believe how calm I said it because she just yelled, live in a 3-flat. She might have woken the neighbors. So, obviously it was very exciting, very, I guess it just felt, I don't want to say like a culmination, but I felt very honored because the nominations are by the the documentary branch, not the whole Academy. So I felt real recognition by my peers, and that felt deeply, deeply satisfying. It still does. And no matter what happens, win or not, I have that, and that means a lot to me.
So you get the high of getting nominated, and then you find out later that the doc short category is one of these 8 categories that's not going to be part of the live telecast. I'm outraged by that. Like I'm mad. I can't even begin to know how you feel as a nominee that you don't get to be part of the live ceremony, that yours is going to be presented beforehand. Talk about, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about that. The first thought I will say is it's very hard to complain when you've been nominated about anything, because I feel already so honored and privileged. That said, obviously I wish they didn't make that decision. I am glad that they're going to cut it into the main program, so at least the viewership will see the award given, but it's not going to be live. 8 categories were moved to the hour before. And, one of the thrills of the Academy Awards is the suspense, not knowing who's going to win until the moment. So basically, they've cut out 1/3 of the suspense of the program. So I don't know if it was the right decision. I understand why they did it. I know the pressures they're under. I don't think it was done like cavalierly at all. But yeah, I wish they hadn't decided to do that. I mean, I think they want to put more like music and singing and that kind of stuff in the program, but I don't know if that's why people watch it.
I'm an Oscars junkie, and I can tell you that it's not. I don't think it's going to bring in new viewers. I think the people that don't watch the Oscars are not going to watch the Oscars, and the people that do love watching the Oscars are going to be annoyed, and I think they might actually lose some of the hardcore Oscar fans by these. Well, we'll see. It's already happened. People are watching this interview. You know what's happened if it was a success or not. But
and we'll see if the ratings go way up, then maybe that was the thing for them to do. I don't know, but if they go down, I just hope they don't. Hope they retract what they did for future years, because these categories are very valuable. I don't know how you can take one out and not the other. And I speak up for the shorts. I mean, we're already always in this precarious position, so I wish they hadn't done that. But.
Yeah. Well, we're about out of time. I will leave you with one final question, just on the general topic of bullying. You've got a counseling therapist background. Do you think, as humans, we are hardwired to pick on the most vulnerable in society? Do you think that's just something that's inside everybody? I know some it's far worse than others, but do you think everybody kind of has that in them?
Yeah, actually, I say that in the film. That's one of the things that I feel like I've learned from the film, and my teacher says it too. I think there is kind of the DNA hardwired aspect to it. Maybe it has to do with survival. Way back in our kind of more primitive and reptilian selves. And I would say it's our lower self. And it could be, like I said, survival, protection. But I also feel like we have higher selves that can transcend that. And that's my hope for us humans, is to, there are a lot of low feelings we have that we have to get past and try to really spend our time more in the light than in the dark.
Well, it's a wonderful film. It's called When We Were Bullies. It will be on HBO Wednesday, March 30th, and then on HBO Max to stream whenever you like. It's also still going to be playing in select theaters along with all of the other Oscar-nominated short films for a few more weeks. And Jay Rosenblatt, good luck at the Oscars, and thanks for talking with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
My pleasure, Joe. I enjoyed it. Thank you.